now recognize myself for 5 minutes. I wanted to start off by thanking all the generals who are here for your service to our country, dedicating your entire life to protecting our freedoms and liberties, being responsible for making critical decisions that not only impact the welfare of the men and women under your commands, but also their families back home. So thank you for a lifetime of service to our country. I was in Iraq in 2006 with the 82nd Airborne Division, and towards the end of that year, General Petraeus was taking over part of this surge strategy. He was taking over all of the surge strategy. And I remember a counterinsurgency model coming out at the time where a lot of his vision for what we need to do in Iraq was articulated really in written form you could find on the internet. He would say things like, give flexibility to local commanders so that they could adapt to changing circumstances, trying to tackle the conflict of Iraqi military and law enforcement, in many cases not even showing up to work. How do we embed forces to ensure that they are going to be there in the morning? My first question is, and I apologize if it was answered while I was away, who's in charge on our side on the ground in Iraq?
United States Central Command is ultimately responsible for the campaign in the campaign plan that's been written. There's a 3-star general who is the commander of the Joint Task Force, Combined Joint Task Force for Operation Inherent Resolve. He's headquartered in the Central Command AOR. On the ground in Iraq is an American 2-star commander who commands the Joint Combined Land Forces effort there.
General Austin is the 3-star?
General Austin is the 4-star Central
Command. The 4-star, right. Okay, so who's the 2-star?
Major General Funk.
Major General Funk. Now, so I remember...
80 seconds coming in behind by the big red one, by the way.
Good decision. As far as Major General Funk goes, or the 3-star that is over him, whose vision? So one of the things in my analysis and analysis of others is, who's in charge and are they being given the flexibility and resources they need to accomplish their mission? When the President sent the authorization for the use of military force to Congress, accompanied with that was a 5-paragraph letter from the White House to Congress. And in one of those paragraphs, it is indicating an understanding that the use of special operations, the use of ground operations would be important. The White House was careful not to word it where it was specifically saying it was going to be U.S. Special Forces or U.S. ground operations. But one of the things in my analysis of whether or not we're actually going to be able to defeat ISIS is that we are driving the recommendations from the ground up. When you have a very talented 2-star, 3-star, or 4-star with multiple combat tours, a lot of combat experience, they understand the enemy, they understand the government, the culture. Without their hands being tied behind their back, they are able to say exactly what we need to do to defeat ISIS. Is that 2-star, does he have the flexibility he needs to say, in his mind, if he wants to send an Army Ranger unit or Marines or Navy SEALs or Delta Force or Green Berets to do a night mission in Syria or some part of Iraq, where they come under the cover of darkness, they take out a high-value target, or they get very important actionable intelligence, does that 2-star have the ability to execute that kind of a mission?
Being cautious about operational security, what I would say, Congressman, is that the chain of command has been empowered both by the chairman and by the Central Command Commander to make the appropriate recommendations for what we need to do to carry out the strategy.
So when Secretary Kerry was here, one of my colleagues, Mr. Grayson, was trying to interpret whether or not the authorization included offensive operations. The Secretary's initial response indicated that it did not authorize offensive operations. With my question, he had the opportunity to clarify it, that it did not involve, he was not referring to kinetic airstrikes. But the one thing that was left unanswered from that back and forth due to a lack of time was whether or not the authorization for the use of military force allows for the use of U.S. Special Operations Forces to be able to conduct that kind of a mission. Does the authorization for the use of military force that the President gave to Congress, does that authorize that commander on the ground to execute that kind of a mission?
The President's transmittal letter included examples of things that are not enduring offensive ground combat operations, such as rescue operations involving U.S. or coalition personnel, the use of special operations forces to take military action against ISIL and their leadership, i.e. counterterrorism, or the use of U.S. forces in situations where ground combat operations are not expected or intended, such as intelligence collection and sharing, missions to enable kinetic strikes, or the provision of operational planning or other forms of advice and assistance to partner forces.
So just so I understand, General, and my time is expiring, just so I understand, would that commander on the ground be authorized, if Congress was to pass this authorization for the use of military force, will that commander be authorized to conduct that special operations mission to take out a high-value target?
Again, Congressman, within the bounds of OPSEC, the commander will be able to make the recommendation for the appropriate military operation to match the appropriate means to the appropriate outcome.
Thank you, General. At this time, I'd like to recognize Mr. Sherman of California.